Welcome to What's Your Story, where we, Jamie Marco,
and Stan Brown,
delve into the extraordinary lives of everyday people.
Listen in as we uncover the unique tales that shape who we are,
one story at a time.
Hey, let's get ready to explore today's story.
Let's do it.
Julie.
Hi, Dad.
Good morning. We're back.
We are. So are you wearing Monet?
No, this is actually Van Gogh.
I mean Van Gogh. Van Gogh.
Yeah.
Starry Night.
Based upon the comments we had in the last podcast about the primal scream you would introduce in your TEDx talk.
Yeah.
This is actually Starry Nights, but remember his painting called The Scream?
Oh yeah, I do.
I wonder, should we start one of our podcasts? Should we try the primal scream for the podcast? It would be too disruptive.
I would hate to frighten anybody that would be like driving in their car and for us to scream that loud. I think it could be, and actually when I did it in my TEDx talk, they had to turn my microphone off because they didn't want it to be too loud. So I like where your head is going. I'm not sure we'd want to do that to our listeners.
But the people in the stadium for your talk didn't object.
No, but they it wasn't as loud.
Joke, stadium, forget about over.
Oh yeah. Well, it's good to see you. As you know, I am just back and refreshed. I was away for about 5 days at my happy place called Savannah.
Well, I'm glad one of us is refreshed.
Oh, Dad, you're retired. I mean, is it really that difficult?
There are certain challenges.
Okay. All right. Well, like what?
I'm still sweating from my bike ride this morning. I'm going to grab a fast towel. I'll be right back.
Oh, okay. So I'm just going to entertain my listeners. So listeners, while my dad goes off, I went this past couple of days. It's my second time going to the most incredible resort. I call it like heaven on earth. It's called Savannah. It's in Arizona, in carefree Arizona. So, I mean, could you go anywhere better to actually become carefree and disconnect? This is my second year going there, and I absolutely love it. So this is not a Savannah commercial, but maybe it is. I have get no credit for talking about them. But what I loved about it is that I went and, you go there, there's a lot of solo travelers. You don't realize there's a lot of people that are there that are going by themselves. And when you start having conversations, people are going for all different types of reasons, whether it was for healing, for, stress relief, just for clarity, or just for well-being. And it was really fascinating us having all these different conversations with different women, mostly women, who were traveling by themselves and had been there for the first time. It was really just so cool and such a really great collective energy. Last time I went, I didn't see as much of that. This time I saw more. And it was I just feel like a completely different person every time I come back. And it gives me new ideas of things I want to do. And if you can afford to take the time off, or to go to a resort like that, which is very affordable compared to everything else, I highly recommend it. I waited 46 years before I took my first trip like that.
Long waiting period. Whoosh.
Yeah. Have you ever done? Oh, well, you've traveled by yourself before, Dad.
I've been married for so long, I really can't recall. I do. I go to the men's room by myself in a restaurant for sure.
Oh, there we go. But I'm excited because I think that as we start to navigate, this new world and having some fresh new perspectives, I'm excited for our guests today. And I'm excited for our guests every single day, actually. I really do like our guests every single day, every time that we have them. But our guest today has a book, and I believe, or actually her company is called Rising Phoenix Coaching. Now, as you know, we really try to lean away from what people do and more into their stories. But I know we've had some guests who they identify more about with what they do. And so that's where they lean into, and we let them go where they want to go. Today, however, I'm really, I know this person, I know a little bit about her story, but I think, Dad, you're going to find her really fascinating to really hear about what got her to where she is today.
Let's raise that Phoenix today.
All right, let's do it. Here we go. We're going to admit her into the room. Her name is Julie, Dad. So
hello, Julie, Dad. I mean, just Julie.
Julie, let's see. There she is. Hi, Julie. Good to see you.
Morning. Hi, great to see both of you. How are y'all?
Hello, good morning, Julie.
Have you met my dad before?
I think I've seen him, but I don't think I've met him. Pleasure to meet you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, we're so pumped to have you on. Now, are you traveling? Are you on, where are you?
Oh, I'm home in Sarasota.
All right, because I know
You look
you're
so relaxed. That's
she does, doesn't
I
she?
am. This is a bit of my sanctuary, it's my
I
healing space.
I love it. Well, first of all, thank you for saying yes. We're so grateful to have you on the podcast. And I was just telling my dad, I actually just got back from Arizona like
Oh,
a couple of days
wow.
ago. Yes. So I know that you'll kind of talk a little bit about where your name comes from, but I recognize the Rising Phoenix is a different reason. But I see
Okay.
some of your pictures. It looks like on your website, you might have been in the mountainous regions of somewhere before. But we'll get to that later on. Before we get started, though, I have a question for you. Today, what is your number on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being it's the best day you've ever had, not a worry in the world. And now I know you're a mom, so that's probably nearly impossible to ever be a 10. To a 1 being that you don't feel like peopling today, and we probably should have rescheduled this podcast.
yeah, but
Um,
remember, you're in your healing space. Be
yeah, I
careful.
am. I actually feel great. I would say to you, I'm a solid 8 or 9. I feel really
Ooh,
good.
baby.
Ooh, that's a big jump, 8 or 9. So that's I mean, like between the two of them, what would it take, whether you're at the 8 or the 9, to go 0.25 higher today?
I really was sitting in meditation before joining you, and really I come to every day with intention, and being in that space opens my heart, and that allows me to be that higher space. And so, it's just being in connection with the two of you and being present for your audience and just being mindfully in that space. And that opens my heart to just joy and gratitude for the time together.
I love
So
that.
we're here to pump you up.
I was like
Great.
Arnold and whatever, pump you up. No, I'm just kidding. It's funny that you talk about intentions. When I was just away, I was at this resort called Savannah. Have you ever heard of it before?
So were you in Scottsdale or is
I
that?
was in Carefree, Arizona.
Okay.
So
Okay, I
about
didn't
like
know
a
that.
little bit north of Scottsdale, I think.
Okay.
So what they do there is that it's really great. I went last year, it's my second year going, but they start every morning off with a 15-minute intention circle, and you go and you sit outside on the lawn and you set your intention, you close your eyes, you think about what is your intention for today, right? And that's the thing. Like I love how you just said that, because I think people get caught up in that meditation has to be this big thing, but it can just be 5 minutes,
Yeah.
15 minutes a max. But then what they do is that they bookend it at the end of the day for sunset, or what is your gratitude reflection.
That's
So
beautiful.
but
Yeah.
where does your practice come from? Because that's not something that, I'm just going to go out on a limb here that I doubt you've been doing that since childhood. That's something that's probably come a little bit later in life. So where did you get that practice of intention and meditation from?
Well, so we should just jump right into my story, right? Here we go. So truly, I don't know if you're Stan, but my dad's name is Stan, also Stanley.
Oh,
Cool.
hello.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, so blessing of a name. But so honestly, Jamie, the answer is really through my, suffering and pain to coming out to a place of healing. And so it's the healing work that I've done that has brought me to a space of waking up every day with meaningful intention. So it's become a practice daily. And if really, as we talk about my story and like I'm writing a book, everything is aligned to that exact space.
Got it. Did that trauma and start at a young age, or is that something that happened later in life? Like, tell us a little.
Sure. No, my husband, who I'd been together with for 25 years and married to for Jacob always says my oldest son is like +3. So, we were together 25 years and we were married for 22 of those years. And he died suddenly of cholangiocarcinoma in 2018. He passed really without only diagnosis within a week of he actually dying, knowing it was cancer 3 weeks before he died. And so dying at home with hospice and no treatment and very quickly.
What
So
kind of cancer? I don't. What kind of cancer is
it's
it?
bile duct cancer. So it's a very rare aggressive cancer, often seen in younger people. Definitely a lot of men, I mean women as well, but
Hmm.
a lot of men, and it's very hard to diagnose. So he just had a period of like sweating, loss of appetite, and lo weight loss, but his white blood cells were elevated, and they thought because of travel that it was an infection,
And
right?
that's systemic. It moves very quickly.
Yeah, and it was very hard to diagnose. So that was a large part of the
Wow.
process. But coming out of that, Jamie, to answer your question, he was 51, I was 50. And that really began my elevation. I spent a career, I'm not sure if you know this, it's almost 30 years as a lawyer, as education attorney representing urban school districts across the country. So I had this very left brain, critical analytical
Yeah.
thinking daily, working with federal courts, U.S. Supreme Courts, writing of laws, protecting the rights of urban students throughout our nation. We represent 78 school districts throughout the nation, millions of children, to going into a space where I've been transitioning to becoming a coach and really living in a spiritual alignment. And that coaching is really working with people to come into this space of living an intention, exactly what you were doing, right? Working on, having that intent, setting those intentions, having a gratitude journal, looking at your life every single day with meaning and having a space of gratitude, but also making choices from that space.
Got it. Well, I knew that your husband had passed. I didn't know how and how quickly that was. And I'm so sorry. I can't even imagine what that might have been like. I'd like to travel back a little bit before that happened and
Sure.
talk a little bit about, where did you grow up, by the way? Where did you
So
grow
I
up?
was it's a great question. Five generations from Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh boy.
Oh,
A lot of
Yeah,
history.
yeah, a lot of history. Stan, my great grandfather walked across Russia during the pogroms, and
Oof.
wow.
he was a young boy, and he was going to be taken. So he walked across, made his way towards the Netherlands, raised money painting, and eventually crossed to the United States to, of course, to New
Wow.
York, where he met my great grandmother, my Mama Gussie,
Mm,
and they made their way to Charleston, South Carolina.
wow.
And my sister's still there now with her husband and some family. And I was just came back from there yesterday, so to be here
Oh,
this morning
no.
for you. And it's a huge part of our family history.
I
How did
love
he
that.
pinpoint Charleston out of curiosity? Why Charleston?
It's a great question. I think that there was a connection to open a grocery store.
Hmm.
So it
Oh,
was a produce and grocery store, and they actually lived above the grocery store.
no way.
And there's a lot of stories back in that time as far as how they lived in community.
Is
Wow.
that store still open?
No, it's
No.
long.
But did you
Yeah.
grow up like going to that store? If that was your
No,
great,
it was
you
my
did
dad's.
that.
It was my dad's lifetime. It wasn't mine.
Oh,
But so then I was born there in Charleston with I have an older brother and a younger sister, and so I went to high school there, and just really, there's a lot of history in Charleston.
what made you, so you graduate high school and where did you go to undergrad?
I went to University of Maryland.
Okay. Is that the Wolverine? No, no, that's not what, that's
The
the
Terrapins, the
Terrapins.
turtles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So what did you study in undergrad?
So in undergrad, I've kind of it's interesting that you asked. I applied to one college and to one law school. I've always,
Really?
yeah, I've always had intentions set on certain things, and I'm just very focused on kind of my desires, I would say. And so I was interested in public policy, knowing that I wanted to go to law school. And I was blessed enough that while I was there, since it was close to DC, that I interned, which was the beginning of that
Oh,
path
that's good. Sure.
with Senator Hollings from South Carolina. So I had the benefit of that time of, I don't know if you would remember this, Stan, you might, Jamie, I have a few years in you, but there was something called the Nation at Risk that came out for education policy. And my Senator Hollings wrote the Democratic response to that. And I was involved with that back in 1989.
Wow, huge step. Wow.
That's
Right?
amazing.
So
That's incredible.
it was the beginning of my path into education law, which was which was an expertise and a specialty that didn't exist as much in my earlier years.
That's incredible. Where did that come from? Like, I mean, where did that passion for
Oh,
education and policy, where did that all come from for you? Is that
you're gonna love this answer, my friend, because
okay?
this is I know some of your passions and missions. Camp.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I work with children. Of course, I was a camper, and then I was a counselor. I went to Blue Star for decades, and I was a camper into a counselor. And I knew I loved children, and I love that aspect. And so it was a combination of law and policy and kids.
I love that. And then, so it sounds like you probably met your husband when you were in your mid-20s, right? Because you were together for 25 years, something like that.
The beginning of law school, yeah.
Were you both at the same law school and that's how you met?
We met at the University of Miami in Coral Gables.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, he had had a girlfriend that his father was a surgeon or something, got moved to that area, and he had visited her. And he went to Bucknell undergrad, and he just loved like being outside in the heat and running, and he loved the water. And so, yes, he came. He was a year ahead of me because I worked for a year in between college and law school.
Mhm.
And so we met, and yeah, we got married. And
And the girlfriend disappeared.
oh, she was long gone before I came along.
We had her disappear. No, I'm kidding.
I didn't even have to deal with her. But no, so no, so that was we got married in 96, but started dating in 93.
Mm.
I got it. And then you navigated law school and then you moved to Sarasota, Florida at what part or no?
No, we actually raised our boys. I have two boys, Jacob and William,
Okay.
and they are now 23 and soon to be 26. My older son Jacob will be 26 and William is 23. And they are in New York City now, but they were we raised them in Pennsylvania. So
Oh, how did,
my
okay.
husband's family. Yeah,
Oh,
my husband's family. So
okay, got
Jim's
it.
family is from Hershey, Pennsylvania, the chocolate kisses of the West.
Yeah, I've never been there actually. Never been. So then were you living there when he passed?
No, so we raised the boys in Pennsylvania. I
Oh,
was very
public education for them?
so it's a great question. So two things. So I was actually driving like before like COVID, before the world of remote working. Can you imagine when I had Jacob, who's going to be 26 years old? I literally was remote working and I had an office at home and I would drive back and forth to DC as needed for whether it's to testify or to meet with, congressmen or senators or whatever. But I was
Wow.
doing what most people are doing today that long ago. So
It
that
was,
was,
it was almost unheard of then.
yeah, but it was like it allowed me to be a great
Yeah.
mom
Yeah.
and to attend a lot of almost, I say good 95% of all school related events.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been able to do that otherwise. So I
Sure.
was really grateful. It was a blessing.
I want to dive in. So you said to testify, and that just caught my attention. We're going to jump a little bit around. So what types of cases were you testifying in back in at that point?
So my expertise, which is even another great question, and it's like work that I still do pro bono around the country as an advocate, but my expertise is a lot in the area of special education.
Oh, okay.
So I wrote, we kind of as a nonprofit I work with called the Council of the Great City Schools. And you get into this space where you really act as an expert in an area. And so with my colleagues, definitely not just myself, but with my colleagues, we really provided expertise that we would get information from our school districts about what was working, what needed to be improved, and then you provide feedback on the written laws, specifically with, around everything affecting K to 12. So of course, I worked on No Child Left Behind. I've worked on Civil Rights Acts, all Title VII, Title VIII, Title IX. With Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, that's the law for students with disabilities. In that aspect, we negotiate many provisions on the Hill and with other parties from both sides, representing our school districts.
I
And
know.
that,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish it.
oh no, and that would take us sometimes to U.S. Supreme Court cases, that would follow.
Wow.
Having been a student of the public educational system in Boston, I really can't remember. Was there a time when special ed became integrated into the public sector?
Absolutely, because the law was passed in the 70s, early 70s.
Okay. Okay.
And then there've been several iterations like since the original law. So that's what
But
happened.
but
You know,
prior to the 70s, these kids had a choice someplace, or no? They just left their own
no,
families.
it was really, I mean, obviously I was born in 68, so I'm not as familiar to be honest,
Sure.
but you're absolutely right, right? The access and the inclusivity and all
There
of
was
that.
there wasn't any access. Yeah,
No,
nothing.
it was originally called the Education Handicapped Act, was the
Sure.
original name of the law.
Mhm.
And it's evolved to be much more inclusive and really to focus what's called the least restrictive environment for students and really to allow for, you know, access and inclusivity.
Gotcha.
I mean, it's changed lives. I think for a long time, people thought that even on like the most, I don't want to say common or basic, but like if you had dyslexia, you didn't get support for that. Like you didn't know, you were just like, you're a bad student. I'm talking like on that side of it, right? I'm not talking about all disabilities, but there's all different types of disabilities out there.
Of
And
course.
those acts have really supported every student who has something in a need. That's why we have the IEPs now, right? That's where that comes from. And it's
Exactly.
incredible. It's absolutely, it's so needed to make every student feel like they have an opportunity to learn just like anyone else. So I love that you've done that.
Jamie, what's so important with what you're just saying is that we all learn differently, right?
Hmm.
And we also come to this world with different gifts.
Hmm.
So like each child of ours, we're different. And so,
Hmm.
the cookie cutter of school doesn't always allow for that.
Yeah, it's so, and now that being a mom, it's so interesting. As I think when you become a parent, you see things in a completely different light and you start to realize, like, wow, I didn't realize how hard it was. Or now I think about, when I was managing leaders who are parents, like, oh, my kid's sick and I can't come in. I'm like, gosh, I mean, you've taken like 5 days off. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, my kid was just out for 5 days, but it's all perspective, right? Like you start to see things differently. And so I started to see the education system differently. And I see what my parents had to navigate with 3 kids as well and how to, where we all kind of were in our learning abilities. And now I'm seeing it. I can't even imagine what you have seen and what you've advocated for. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of the millions of children that I'm sure you have helped.
Oh,
So
you're
it's
so
incredible.
welcome. And it's,
Yeah.
it's my deepest honor because there's nothing more than helping a child provide access because then their self-esteem comes from
Sure.
that, their sociability with others comes from that. You
Yeah.
know, that opens their whole lives for how they see themselves for what's available.
Yeah.
So and now, just to share, years later, because of my expertise, I'll take on like major pro bono cases.
Sure.
Mhm.
And so, I'm mindful. I don't do it with districts that I've represented on the other side. So I'm doing it with districts and families. But like in Sarasota, I've had just beautiful situations of being able to help families with young children, and it's just really, it's a
Mhm.
blessing. Or I'll get calls from other places around the country, and it's a gift. It's really a gift to be able to give back.
I love that. And people don't realize how fundamental those early years are. I think from elementary through middle. I mean, obviously every year is important, but just what that does to build up the confidence in kids is just huge. So I love that. So, okay, so I'm going to jump back now. And so you're living in Pennsylvania, you're raising your boys there, and then you make this move to Florida at a certain time, or why?
That's correct. That's exactly
What was that?
correct. So my oldest son, Jacob, guess I give a little plug. My boys are both very gifted and bright, but he was valedictorian. He graduated from public school in 2000, May of 2017. And William, my youngest, we had decided we'd spent a lot of time in Florida, but my mother grew up in Tampa. My brother, his wife, and children are in Tampa, and aunts, uncles, cousins. But we
Mhm.
love the water. Like we are really water people, all of us. And so we had spent some time in Marco. And so coming to Sarasota, my parents were in Lakewood Ranch area. It was just a great kind of in the middle to have this opportunity to be on the water, to be near family, and, to really shift into a different space. And so we made the move here um, in the summer of 2017. And then unfortunately, Jim passed soon. It was in
Wow.
December of 2018. So he was not here long. And William went to Riverview for the IB program,
So what grade was he in when you moved to Florida?
10th grade.
So
So
I mean, how do you navigate? That's a big,
Big adjustment,
we
sure.
moved when I was in ninth grade, my parents moved to California. We ended up
wow.
moving back when I was in 10th grade. They just wanted to see how resilient I was, I think.
Hey, it worked
But
out pretty good for you.
yeah,
I
yeah.
say she's doing really good.
Oh,
It worked
thanks.
out just fine.
Oh, geez. But how did that go for William? That's a big move for a 10th grader. And, what was that like?
He was so mature. He had played very competitive soccer and played tennis and other sports in high
That
school,
helps, sure.
but he made friends initially. He'd run cross country like in middle school, and he's like, okay, in Florida, they run during different sports, different seasons, right? So he came and he started to meet kids running cross country, and being the education person that I am, we spent a lot of time investigating the schools, public schools in the area. And I love the International Baccalaureate program for the audio, for the readers and people just listening. The IB is a very holistic program. So you really have the critical analytical skills of writing. You learn about different cultures and religions. And then the math and sciences are just amazing. So for me, it was very holistic, and it was important for him to have a full education. And so a lot of our lives of choosing to come here was actually built around that.
I love that. So he gets this opportunity. then you're living your best life. You're practicing law still, also advocating for the education system. What line of work was Jim in?
Jim had been in the building development business.
Okay.
So he up north had a very large residential building development business. Honestly, we got hit very seriously with some of the financial different periods and
Mm.
had some hard times, which kind of led to us making a shift and kind of coming here. And to be, I was thinking about it before joining you as I was dropping in and you're asking about like that healing space, Stan, and where I am. And I'm like, as I'm writing this book, Divine Ashes Ascending, and telling the journey of Jim's death in my life and where we are, like, I'm very mindful of how to honor him. And life, we all have different sufferings and different traumas and different chapters, right? And so often in our society, we don't honor those or talk about them or really, um, everybody wants to pretend like everything's perfect. That doesn't exist. Life can be hard. So we came here at a time that was harder for him. And if you're familiar, I was thinking about it. The body keeps the score. It's how our bodies take on cortisol and where
Yeah.
our amygdala, how we respond into fight or flight. And you know me, Jamie, but I'm definitely a fighter. And so, like, that would be my external aspect. And Jim went within. And so I think a lot of his stress internalized into this cancer.
Yeah.
Dangerous territory, sure.
Hmm.
But it's true, the stress is the impact stress has on your body. People don't realize how much of a toll it takes on your body. I remember, and this is not to discount anything he was feeling. I want to jump back into that, but I remember I had gotten this. I was doing for when I was planning for my TEDx talk. I'd gotten a pain in my back all of a sudden, just this pain in my back, and I was doing Reiki. I was doing what's the needles things?
Acupuncture.
Thank you,
Acupuncture.
acupuncture. My dad sent me to a therapist to have pressure. I was getting massages. Nothing was getting rid of it. And it was almost debilitating that
Mm.
I was thinking, I'm not going to be able to get on stage and give a talk because I can't sleep. I can't move. My back is killing. It hurt so bad. Nothing was helping with it. And the
Wow.
moment I stepped on that stage and all of the relief was done about planning for that speech, it went away. But it was just such a reminder of how stress, like we can do whatever. We have to really figure out what's eating us and get to that, because if not, then it can be, as you said, fatal.
So I can't help myself in my coaching role, if I may, with your
Sure,
permission,
please.
with your permission. Um, that stuck energy, that was stuck somatic energy that was stuck in your body, and you didn't release that energy until you got on the stage.
Yeah.
So it had to come through you.
Yeah. No, you're 100%. So walk us, navigate us down. What were some of, and we won't spend too much time here because I know it's going to be in your book and I don't want to give it away, but my husband happens to be sick right now. He has like a fever and he had like some other stuff going on. I'm like, go to the doctor, go to the doctor, go to the doctor. But I always find that it's not only men or women, it's just people. Sometimes like, no, I'll be fine. And they don't go to the doctor. So what were some of to help other listeners, since you said
Mhm.
it's hard to diagnose, what were some of the symptoms that Jim was experiencing up to his diagnosis that you guys were like, you know what, we need to find a doctor?
So I'm going to take this a little bit out of the left brain question of what were the symptoms. I'll answer that, but I
Sure,
want to give you a different answer because I feel like it's really important.
sure.
It's intuition. So it is really listening to your intuition when you feel that something is not right,
It ain't right.
Mm,
right? And you need to be able to go within
mm,
to like, okay, I'm feeling something. I don't know what's going on. And I have to honor it to go to the doctor. Okay. So that's like, and that may be also, I do a lot of in the book as well. I'll talk about a lot of the healing modalities. And I heard the two of you talk about it as well, yoga being one of them.
mm.
Um, but there's so much that we could do to heal ourselves
No
a
question.
different perspective. Okay. So there's so many things to answer in this question. But in Jim's case, he had a loss of appetite. He was sweating and losing weight. That was it, nothing else.
Mm.
And his white blood cells had been elevated. So it was an automatic that it would be an infection. We had been away as a family on a cruise. They definitely thought it was an infection of some kind and just treating it with antibiotics. So it wasn't until nobody could really diagnose what was going on. He'd actually seen a hematologist oncologist, did a bone marrow biopsy,
Oh,
And that was negative. I mean, you never think, oh, well, you wish
Yeah.
something was positive, but you're looking for answers.
Yeah.
And then we went into, he still was miserable. And I remember it was my mother's birthday, and my sister-in-law was pregnant. And Jim was so sweet. And he's like, I can't expose myself in case this is a virus or something. God forbid the baby gets sick,
Sure.
so
Yeah.
then, in utero. So he didn't come. And it was like, I came home that night and I said, honey, we have got to go to the hospital. Like, we just have to. And it was then on the November 5th, that went to the hospital. He was in, during that time, they realized there were some epithelial cells in his liver that were not, that were metastasized, but they couldn't listen to this, you guys. I've never heard of this before, never heard of it again, but it was diagnosed as the cancer of an unknown primary. It's
Oh,
less
gee.
than 3% in the world where they can't find where the cancer comes from.
Mm.
Wow.
Okay. Full body scan, everything is clear. Cannot figure out where the cancer comes from. So we had family. We were able to get him into MD Anderson. Like, Thanksgiving was just like the week in between. But Jim got sick really quickly. Like, his body started to deteriorate, and like, he was jaundiced and he was weak. So I would say to your listeners, like, listen, when and if you really are not feeling well, even if your doctors can't give you answers, you have to keep pushing forward to try to get information.
Yeah.
Now, question, was it your intuition alone or was it his also?
At the time, Stan, it's a great question. I don't think that I would allow my intuition in. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, at the time, again, like, like Jaime, I had a huge conference I was speaking at. We have a meeting of like 1,500 people at the end of October, right?
Mhm.
So I was getting ready for that huge meeting. And so I was focused on work. And so just he was being treated initially with antibiotics. So you think, oh,
Yeah.
your husband's not feeling well, you'll take the medicine and it'll be fine. So that's kind of what we initially thought, like, it'll be fine. So it wasn't until, like, after I got home, and then I just stand physically, energetically being with him, I'm like, honey, something is just not right. We have got to honor that we don't know what's going on and that your internist can't tell us, and we have to take the next step.
Mm.
So I think it's like, when you really feel it intuitively, you
Mhm.
just have to move on it.
Mm.
Yeah. And then you said he passed in December.
Yeah, December 6th, so really early. Like, honestly, we
Yeah.
left Tampa General November 10th. He
Wow.
passed December 6th. And honestly, we left MD Anderson, came home a week before by medevac. Hospice came in when we came home, and he died literally at 3:33 on Thursday, December 6th, 2018.
Wow. That is, you're navigating at that time. First of all, it's so sudden. You don't even get to do anything. Isn't he was too sick to probably even, like, have some last joyful moments or whatever. But you're navigating not only your grief, but you also have two boys who, must have been what, like 17 and 21 at the time?
16 and 19.
Yeah, okay, sorry, 16 and 19. So you
Yeah,
have to be there as a mom for them as well, too.
absolutely. And sweetie, it's like, think about it this way. It's like, it's not, you can't even touch the grief because the trauma and the
Yeah.
shock are so great
Yeah.
that, like, somebody could die and slip out of our fingers, that anybody that we love today that could be gone in 3 weeks. One of the chapters in the book are the eternal 3 weeks, but it's just, you know, that's possible,
Yeah.
but people, then all the time, there's car accidents, things
Mhm.
happen.
It's an
And
it's got to be it's an unreal experience. The reality just does not sink in. It's like you can't believe it happened.
no, and it's so, listen, you asked like where I'm at today. It's been with a lot of intentional healing, a lot of tears, a lot of pain, and being very mindful about how to choose to work through it.
Yeah. Well, there's all the different stages of grief. And I'm sure, as a coach and as a counselor and as a person who's gone through it, you probably went through all of those stages at different times. And,
Absolutely.
you can navigate all that. So, what was that turning point that you had that you said, okay, you know what? Now I'm at a place where I want to help others. And I think you've frozen, but I'm not sure if you can still hear us or not. Dad, is it frozen on your end as well too for her?
I can't see her.
Yeah, so we'll give her a second to come back. I'm not sure. what's going on there, but I can't even begin to imagine going through something like that and only having 3 weeks and not even knowing that you only have 3 weeks, right? That's got to be.
I think I'm not speaking from personal experience, thank goodness. I think what happened, you have to submerge your feeling because you've got two children you have to deal with. So I think you almost kind of put your stuff on hold, being in the nurturing mode for your kids. But she can explain that better than I can.
Yeah. We lost her for a minute. I'm sure she'll be coming back any second. But every time, so I met Julie years ago and I had no idea what her story was. And I knew a little bit of it. I didn't realize how quickly that had formed and that had happened. I knew she had two boys. I knew their husband had passed. But it just goes to show you that when you meet somebody, you have absolutely no idea what their story is. Like, she is a fighter. She is a strong, empowered person who, like, every time I saw her, I was always like, that's like, I want to be like Julie. I want to be more like Julie. And she's just such an incredibly educated and wise woman who knows what she wants, understands how to communicate it, and comes off so strong. And you would never ever know that in the background of that,
The
she's
personal struggle,
creating a
sure.
loss. Yeah, a personal struggle.
Well, that's what first wanted to call the podcast instead of "What's Your Story." I wanted to call it "Walk a Mile in My Shoes." And if you do that, man, you learn things. You see the end Julia now. You don't see by walking in her shoes how she got to that point. It's a very, very difficult walk.
Yeah. And it's, you wonder, like, if, and I want to ask this when she comes back, is that, as you do that, the question, like, why me? Why me? Why did this happen to me? And that's a place where I think a lot of people live in. When we met and talked with Justin a couple months back, and we were talking about his boys and how they had that rare genetic disorder. You remember the two boys?
Hmm.
And he said, we could have said, why me? But instead they said, we're glad it's me. Like, I'm so glad it's me because I got to navigate that. And now what she's doing to help others is truly incredible. So it's an amazing way that, her coaching group is called Rising Phoenix. And as we know, what is it, like the burn of the, what is the saying about the ashes? Isn't there a saying?
Right, just the phoenix will rise from the ashes.
Yeah. So it sounds like as she's, kind of navigating her loss and her grief and doing that possibly through writing a book. Obviously, we know writing is very therapeutic, but wow, what like an incredible just journey that she must have had.
How do we get her back?
She's back. She's back. So I'm going to let her in. So I just think it's amazing. I think that, like, you don't ever know what somebody is going through. And Julie, I was just saying that while we lost you for a minute, I was saying that when I first met you, I didn't know your story. I didn't know anything about you. And as I started to get to know you and just hearing and seeing social media posts, I knew. But I told my dad when I first met you, when I was in that meeting with you for the very first time, I was like, God, she is amazing. Like, she is like strong and she's got her voice and she is so educated and just knows exactly what she's talking about. And I would have never, ever imagined that you had navigated any sort of challenge like this. And it's just the purpose of our podcast is like, you just never know somebody's story. So I just love that you do that. So my question now that you're back with us
So
is,
I have to tell,
go ahead.
no, I was just going to tell you the reason I mean, like this is just so funny. So like I mentioned to you that Jim passed at 3:33, right?
Mhm.
Right.
And I don't think I was going to share this on this podcast, but I guess he intends for me to do so. He messes with my electronics all the time.
Ooh, hello. That's another
Oh,
podcast, baby.
Okay. And so he connects with me through the numbers 333 and he guides my children and I. But like I don't think I was going to share it. And so he like disconnected the technology so that I it was a complete download, intention to share, to be honest, to be transparent with your audience.
yeah.
I connect with him all the time and he guides me all the
Woo.
time.
Wow.
I love that. I just took when I was at this place, Savannah, I took a numerology class. And she asked that. And she said, how many of you have numbers that follow you around? And a minute ago, it was 33 after the hour. I'm not sure if you realized that. But when you dropped, it was 33 after the hour.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
there you go. Oh boy,
So
that gives me chills like my whole entire body.
yeah.
And there are three of us.
Oh, there you go.
But look, I have it on my neck. I wear it every day. Like
Is it
he
a three or
connects with
three,
me.
333?
333. But he saw for 3 years before he passed the number 33 and 333. And I have all these pictures of him with the numbers. And he even had a conversation with my dearest friend when we were in with an MD Anderson. how would he connect with us, and that he would connect with us through the numbers. Yeah.
Wow. So before he even was sick, those are the numbers that he just would randomly see all the time?
And now my husband understand engineer, builder, lawyer.
Yeah.
This is not somebody who would be in, would tease me in the woo-woo space. And I have all these pictures of him pointing to the numbers, taking on his watch. We all shared them between us. I'm looking at a picture of my son on the wall. His varsity as a freshman was number randomly was 33. So you're telling
Wow.
me that he cut off at 33 on the hour?
Yes.
Like and I honestly was not probably going to share this today.
Julia, outside of that, was he intuitive about things in his lifetime?
Not really. Like it's not really how he approached. He was a man of like tremendous kindness. He would have said kindness was his religion,
Hmm.
but no. And it caught his attention, Stan. And to be honest with you, I met another gentleman like about 2.5 years after Jim passed, and his son shares my youngest son's birthday, and he was born at 3:33.
Wow. So I would not normally do anything on my computer, but because I just learned about numerology, I learned about your master numbers. And so I just Googled real fast, tell me about the master number 33. And it says that's the master teacher. The 33 is the most spiritual, evolved of all numbers. The 33 is the most influential to all numbers. It combines the 11 and the 22, boosting their potential to another level. When expressed to the fullest, the 33 lacks personal. No, that's not what I'm doing. Oh, it's high level of sincere devotion. So you should, have you ever Googled it? Have you ever Googled it, the number 30?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm very aware. It's a
Oh,
huge part of my life. Like when I came to where I was living, it wasn't 3:33, but it was 3:33 on the clock, on the microwave. It was 3:33, but it wasn't 3:33. So Jim, it's a constant guidance.
Wow.
And so it is in the book. And it's like I share a lot of the connections, but it's very real.
how often does somebody ask you what your necklace means?
That's a great question. There's sometimes I was with girlfriends last night, and one friend who studies Kabbalah and teaches and actually makes her jewelry is called the Untamed Hearts, and she makes jewelry with numbers. So, like we were talking about numbers yesterday,
Okay.
about the meaning of different numbers and being very cognizant. So, it could be every day, or it could be a week or so could pass.
Hmm.
I always think that, people are always wearing clues of stuff and we don't ask them about it. Does it
Mhm.
offend you when someone asks you about what the three things?
Oh,
No, no.
no, not at all.
You want to talk
I
about
welcome it. I can tell you a great story if you want to
it.
hear.
Yeah, of course.
We're ready. We're ready.
I was doing Danny Shapiro's workshop at Apollo in Stockbridge in this past fall. As I'm writing, I'm just going to different experiences. But I went to this like bee honey workshop, like separately apart, like in my own space, so they started just like you were starting, like talking about in Arizona, and we had a circle and about our intentions, and we're just talking about bees, like, right? Like you think like what's going to come of this? And people start to share these really personal stories. And by the time we're in it, like there's tears flowing. And the gentleman that was, leading it, I said, we really should drop in and do a meditation. And he's like, please lead us. And so then we dropped in. And then this woman came up to me afterwards and she's like, I see your necklace. Can you please tell me more? And I said, my husband passed. It's been this long. And he guides me. And she says, I just lost a son a few months ago. And I've been seeing there were certain things that were showing up for her. And she's like, now I know they're true,
Mhm.
you know? So
I love
it serves, provides a lot of solace to to people who have experiences, but somehow society wants us to deny the connection between who we are within ourselves and the divine beyond. So it's really, with my whole soul, listen, I share it in the book, but like with hospice, the nurse said to us that Jim was taking his last breath at 3:23. And I out loud said, no, it won't be 3:23. He'll pass at 3:33.
Wow.
And he did.
Wow. So
So
you,
yeah, so I know maybe not where you thought you were going with me today, but it's
yeah,
very much.
I think he's messing with you again. Your technology is tapping out a little bit. He's like, stop talking about me or keep talking about me. He's here with us somewhere. Um,
I would
I'm not
not be
sure if
surprised.
you, yeah, so, but it's interesting because so you helped that woman kind of find her clarity, but now you're on a journey. You have recently taken a different path for yourself. And I'm sure you're probably still doing the work you've always done, but only within the last year have you really kind of gone on this new journey of being a coach now to others. Is that correct? Am I correct in that time frame?
Well, so I was with the council full time through the Harvard case. You're familiar with that U.S. Supreme Court case. I filed an amicus brief. It was like the end of July of 21. And then after that, I've done projects with them. And then I did a coaching course through Sedona Soul Adventures in Sedona. And we could talk all about
Mm,
Arizona. Arizona is
special.
mystical and healing and just a really special place. And anyhow, so going back to kind of thinking about the work, then I started the coaching course and then coaching and putting in so many hours in the past year and a half. And then last year, I I joined, I had my LLC. So that's why you would think it was just a year ago. So it was a year
Okay,
ago in June that I made it I formalized it.
got it. Okay. So now, what an incredible place to come from because you have such an experience. You're educated in so many different things, but now is the name of your coaching company is the Rising Phoenix Coaching. That is your company, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then your book title, you already kind of teased it a little bit, but what was the title of the book again?
The book title is Divine Ashes Ascending, The
Okay.
Journey of Dying and Living with Grace.
Got it. So we've got the ashes and the phoenix connected.
Exactly. And
Rising.
that's the symbol. That's on the cover of my book.
Okay, got it. So who are the type of people that you work with now that you're able to bring in your experience and your grief, but also help them navigate their lives? Like what are the type of people that you're working with now to help in coaching?
So really, a lot of the women that I'm working with now are people that have lost spouses because I really understand the space.
Yeah.
And even people that are necessarily could be, have professional backgrounds in therapy, but it's bringing something different and more of an intuitive way. Just like you were talking about your TEDx,
Mm-hmm.
and if I would have been working with you then, I would have really would wanted to have gone within to see what you were holding on to
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
and releasing maybe some of that fear or anxiety or different things that were coming up for you, right?
Or, yeah.
So whether I'm working with women in the space of grief, it could be loss, divorce, it could be financial challenges. I've definitely worked with many men in my coaching certification, which I've enjoyed doing as well. But I have a special space for women, that are going through major life transitioning to work through the healing processes there.
Got it.
Individual, online, in person, groups, give a little more information.
Sure, both. I've done individual online, I've done individual, some stuff, in person, and I've done some retreat work. And I'm glad for you to ask that question, Stan. So thank you for asking the
Oh,
question.
my pleasure.
Last year, a group of us from my coaching course, I facilitated a group in Sedona, just like 8 of us, and doing breath work and meditation and doing work on the land and the vortexes. And so that's in smaller groups. And it's really my aspiration and desire. So as the book comes out, to leverage the messaging in the book, which really goes back to Jamie's original question of intention, which is creating soul alignment. So when I believe, so like you, the two of you creating this podcast, or how Jamie works with people, and she's just amazing as far as like the work she's done in hospice and Tidewell and really using her skill set in the most passionate, purposeful way to elevate or to talk about your team rather than employees and what that message brings out to everyone that you touch, Jamie, really, that's like when we live in alignment, everything comes together. Your TEDx, the opportunities, the speaking engagements, it all follows because you are living. And look, you're doing this podcast with your dad.
Mm.
How special.
Mm-hmm.
So, what a rock star y'all are.
Oh,
It's like really living within that love and that alignment that you have this moment in time to create this space together. That's what my goal is to help every individual who reads the book. It's set up in a way, if I may share, like
yeah.
I'm sharing my memoir, like a little bit of my story, and then there's a meditation that I will take the reader through to drop in, kind of like we were talking about, like where are you at? And the reason I was in that space is because I took the time to be
I
mindfully there, and then to do didactic exercises.
love
And
that.
those exercises create a transformational space. So it's not about me, it's about the reader to
Yeah.
go through, like as if I was coaching, to start to go internally. Like one thing I'll share with you, I think it's a really powerful tool for your audience, is that doesn't somebody have to be sick? It could be an elderly parent, it could be a spouse, it could be however you want. But like my son William was so wise, and he goes, Mom, I don't know what to do to communicate to Dad how I feel, because it was just like we said, it was so quick, right? And I said, sweetheart, why don't you write a letter? Why don't you express to Dad like where you have gratitude for the lessons he's taught you? What comes to you about the legacy he's leaving within you? And I had enough sense to kind of guide him with some initial questions that he went and dropped in and wrote this letter that is so heartfelt and so meaningful. So within the book, I take the reader through questions to ask, like have you asked your parents, like, what's the legacy that lives within you from what they've taught you?
Hmm.
How do you treat others based on the lessons you're teaching your children?
Hmm.
Mine, one of the things I did coming out of my coaching class, and it's a great thing for your audience to consider doing, is we have these iPhones now, is I recorded videos when I was out in Sedona with life lessons, not about dying, but about life lessons that I want my children to embody. Listen, it's all great in the external world to build what people think means
Yeah.
success.
Hmm.
For me, my success for them is living from their hearts, living with passion, with purpose, having meaningful relationships with partners that see them and hear them and support them. And it's not about the external, it's all about the internal. And so for me, that's my whole goal within the book.
When does your book come out?
So I am writing kind of my final few chapters. I'm like they're outlined, and this is so I'm glad you asked the question. So like the chapter that I'm in right now is I was actually writing the chapter about like the right to die, and Jim used to talk about we love dogs and how we treat animals in our society kind of versus how we, and just knowing of hospice, and I'm a huge supporter of hospice, and really just embodying where we are and creating a setting that people want and how they see dying. And there's Alua Arthur is this woman, she's a death doula, and I went to a grief retreat with her and a woman by the name of Claire Bidwell Smith and BJ Miller, who you met,
I did.
right? I went to a
Yes,
grief
it's
retreat.
amazing. Yeah.
Yes. And so I went to a grief retreat with the three of them,
Wow.
like in the fall 21 with a dear friend and my mother and her best friend. And anyhow, got exposed to what a death doula is. And
Hmm.
it's somebody who really works with somebody kind of creating a lot of situations around how we die. And Alua says this, she says she wants people to clap at her death rather than being in a deep, different places of grief. I don't want to speak for her, but the idea is that you
Yeah.
celebrate the legacy of your life.
Yeah.
And so my whole conceptual, like now the chapter that I'm kind of working on is what is a death doula? How can we empower ourselves in a death space? How
Yeah.
can we talk about death in a way that people don't come to it with fear, but
Yeah.
come to it with really love,
That's incredible.
you know?
There's a movie on Netflix. I'm not sure if you've seen it. It's called The Life List. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it's basically
I haven't.
and is the mom and oh, what's her name? I forget the girl's name who is plays her daughter, but her mom dies of cancer, but her mom had recorded all of these videos for her of telling her what to do for her life. She wrote these like lift, and it's you have to watch it. It's a tearjerker. It's incredible, absolutely amazing. But as we're just sitting here talking now, I'm thinking, I've got a young daughter, and yeah, we talk all the time, but like we said, life is fragile. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know, what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know where we are. And so I'm going to take that away and I'm going to record some videos. And, I think that for me, even if I'm going to put this on video now, so it's out there, that if anything were to ever happen to me to where she had to grow up without her mom, I would hope that people would show up for that service and just tell her that they're there for her. Like that would be my thing, right? Like listen, your mom, like I would want every single person that's ever listened to this podcast to show up for her, like just be, and for my husband as well too, but like he's going to be a grown man, but but like for me, it's, like you think about, God, it's just scary to even think about that. But yeah, I'm putting it out there in the universe that if anything were to happen, all of you show up for my daughter, not for anything else, and have a glass of champagne and celebrate.
And wait, and tell us her first name to share with her name with everybody.
I don't do that normally on here.
Oh,
So
don't do that.
I'll tell you,
Okay.
yeah, I'll
Well,
tell you
then
privately. Yeah.
so then just put out the energy to the
Yeah.
universe of
Yeah.
that you're celebrating your daughter
Yes.
and how much that means to you and what
Yeah.
that would mean to support her in that situation. But this is the messages, right? They're different for everybody, Jaime.
Yeah.
It's just like, what is it that resonates within you? Which that came up for you right away, right?
Yes.
You
Instantly.
felt that right away.
Instantly. At this resort, I keep going back to Savannah. They're going to get a big plug on this. You should call them and tell them. But there's a labyrinth. And I remember I've walked two labyrinths in my life. One was in Sedona years ago, probably about 15 years ago when I went through a terrible breakup. And I remember walking through the labyrinth. And for those that don't know what a labyrinth is, it's a maze-like place to where you walk in a circle, there's an end spot, it gets you there, and then you walk back out. But as you're walking through the labyrinth, you're setting an intention, you're giving clarity, you're getting rid of what you don't need, grabbing on what you do need. And the universe listens, because as I walked through that this time, the first time I did it in Sedona, I like bawled my eyes out the whole time, but it felt good. And then last year when I went to Savannah, I did it. But this year, as I was doing it, like literally the first day I did it, and I did that last day, the first day I put some stuff out to the universe, and it happened the next day. I got a phone call about something I was just thinking about. Yes. So the universe works fast. But like you said, it's what we put out there, right? It's the words I always say the words we use directly impact the results that we get. And
Absolutely.
you said it multiple times, lead with love, lead with love, lead with love, whatever that is. And it absolutely just resonates off of you when I'm in person with you or even to the screen. And I just think it's incredible what you're doing. So thank you for being who
Oh,
you are. I hate that part of your journey got you here because of loss and your own grief. But I also am so inspired by the fact that you have taken that and lifted yourself up out of the ashes and risen to be this new version of yourself. I think it's amazing.
I thank you for that. But it's just, I believe with my entire soul in being at this stage of the game. I've been studying Kabbalah a lot lately. And the idea is that like we are all on these journeys that have been intended for ourselves,
Mhm.
and everybody is like an actor, actress in the film. And
Mm-hmm.
it's all for our own lessons. And so I embody the fact that this has been my journey, and now it's my time to fully give back to others and to help others rise from the ashes for themselves, for whatever that means for themselves, and to just share, share
Yeah.
my truth, share my life so that others can experience. And you know what, guys? Here's to you for asking the question, what's your story? Because I believe it so wholeheartedly, Jaime, like you was talking about being in that boardroom and doing the volunteer work together and
Yeah.
not knowing, like it's like I say we often don't know. It could be chapter 3, but what happened in
Yeah.
chapter 2 and chapter 1? What happened in each of your lives? Like there's
Mhm.
so much that happens in our lives that unless we have those real conversations, we don't know.
Mhm. You
Can't
just
make
remind me.
assumptions.
Yeah, no, you're right. And we do so often. You just remind me of a thing I had seen online the other day. It said something like, if you were the main character of a movie you were watching, what would you be yelling at the main character to do? Or something like that. If you were watching yourself, like what would you be yelling at them to do? Now go and do that. And I thought I'm probably totally butchering the comment. But you
Yes,
know how
you
like
are.
you like yell, right? You're like yell at screen, like don't go upstairs, don't go upstairs. Like in a horror film or whatever. Or like if you're like, no, just kill them, or no, just do it. But like that's the kind of thing is that you have to look at your life, and life is short, and we get so caught up in what are we doing. That's why we don't ask you what do you do? Who are you? That's the bigger thing. And I
Absolutely.
just think
Absolutely. It's
that's why we
everything.
yeah, and that's why we do this podcast is to connect with people and learn their stories and share them and let other people know that they're not alone, and hopefully they can connect to somebody. And I'm sure that there will be somebody, if not multiple and hundreds of people who connect with your message. So thank you for being our guest. We appreciate you.
It's my pleasure. I am so grateful that you reached out and that both of you asked for me to join you.
And now we know who you are.
We do. I think there's some more. There's some more to it. Okay, so I want to make sure that our listeners know. So I don't, do we, and maybe I misread it. Is there a date of the book coming out, or we're still working in there? We're not sure yet.
So the date, my goal, really honestly, I'd like to honor my husband's passing and to have it released on December 6th of 2025. So that's my goal. I've been interviewing editors, and I will eventually give them sample components to edit and then work on the publishing side. So it's a process. Our society is hard because, so many people are looking in the traditional publishing is like, who's following you? But for me, it's like I'm really working for my intuition and allowing myself to be in a space again, like
Yeah.
not just to be impulsive of making decisions, but to be mindful.
Yeah.
And so,
Well,
but
I've
that's my
got
goal.
some resources I'll send you because I'm in the middle of my book as well too. So I've got some good things I will send you. I'm going to send them your
Oh,
way
I'd love that.
to
I'd
help
be
you out there.
grateful.
But yeah, I think that you're amazing, and we will keep our listeners posted when this comes out. Where you are in your journey there. We'll also share with them where they can find you and your website for your coaching website, which is I just had it up here. It is risingphoenix.life. Is that correct?
Right. And then actually needs the HTTPS on that. So just add that in and you'll be able to come right to me and to sign up for the book or to coach or anything that anybody may be interested in. Yeah.
Is that
Excellent.
image on the front page you somewhere in the
So it's not, but it's the Red Rocks in Sedona. Um, I've had a lot of experiences there with my children, with another gentleman who's really helped me a lot out of with my own work and as a partner, and a lot of healing, self-healing, and then leading retreats. So it's really symbolic of that energy. So yeah, it's not me, but it's representative. And the rainbow kind of like light is intended to be like healing energy and
Oh,
to
I
really
saw
kind of
that.
lead the individual into the journey.
I almost feel like that's like an orbs or really it's like way in.
Yeah, I think it feels
Yeah,
that way to me. It was very intentional.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Again, intent.
I know.
There
Hey,
you
everything comes back to intention. In fact, like I'm going to get you one of my cups. Do I have one around here somewhere? I have cups, and on them they say, "What's your intention?" And they're dry erase cups. So
go. Oh,
every day,
wow.
you can write on there like, "What's your intention?" So I'm going to get you one as a little just gift, to gift to you. But
Oh, I would
anyway,
love that. I would love
we're
that. Well, thank
so
y'all.
grateful. Yes, thank
Can't thank
you.
you. So grateful. And, Jamie, I admire, you talk about saying that stand is important for me to say with you here is like your inspiration and your presence and what you give back to the community. And I know you do it all from your heart. And I was so proud of you. I wanted to go that day with BJ and I was into Blue Butterfly, which has been an
Mhm.
important part of my family's life. My mom is doing a lot of work with the children and working in the group therapy sessions and helping young kids who've lost parents. And
Yeah.
you're doing great work, honey. And
Well,
just,
thank you. I
it's an honor
appreciate it.
to know you,
I
truly.
appreciate that. Thank you. Well, I will cannot wait to see you soon. You're getting a big hug next time I see you in person. So be ready for it.
Okay. And Stan, I look forward to meeting you in person too. Okay.
Another great session. Me too.
Oh, but
Okay.
by the way, I will tease it right here real fast
Yes, yes.
because you are one of our first 52 episodes. You will also be in another book if you sign the release and say that we can share your story as one of our chapters in our book. So we are doing a book, a What's Your Story, our first season. So we'll share that with you if you're open for it. That'll be basically be a summary of your
Of
episodes.
course.
You'll have like 2 best-selling books soon.
I'm open. Amen, amen, amen. There you go.
I
Tell
love
the
it. Put
universe.
it out there.
I love it.
Thank you, Julie. We
Y'all
appreciate
take care.
you. All right,
See you,
bye.
Thanks,
Julie.
thanks
Bye-bye.
again, both of
All right,
you.
Bye-bye.
thanks.
I
Bye.
appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Oh my goodness. So, wow.
Very intentional, inspirational, intuitive stuff.
Yeah. Are you going to start making some videos for your family?
Well, it's crazy. It's unfortunate one has to go through some of this kind of trauma to get to a particular point, but I mean, she's dealing with it in a fashion that's very unique. She's just a very strong woman.
I know. One of the things that I love most about what we're doing with this podcast, and I tell it to so many people, is that this is moments that you and I will have forever on camera. Forever. It won't ever go anywhere. So your grandchild will see it. Her children will see it. So like this will, I mean, unless like video goes away, but video killed the radio star. But no, I'm just kidding. But thinking about like these videos will live on as our legacy forever.
I'm going to advertise now for a makeup artist to work with me the next time I appear on camera.
Whatever.
I wonder what percentage actually see us as well as hear us? No way to tell, eh?
Oh, I can tell you. I think
Yeah.
the majority of our audiences are listening to us based on our viewership. So I could tell you that. But we don't need to tell our listeners that. But here's the thing. So, listeners, we are going to be, talking about our different stories that are out there. But if you have someone that you think would be a great guest and you want them to share their stories, or maybe that's you, and you're like, hey, I'm ready to have a conversation with Jaime and Stan, email us. We love to hear from you. We love to talk with different people. We have guests from around the world of all different backgrounds. And that's what makes this podcast so beautiful and so incredible. So we're so grateful for your viewership. We have surpassed over 1,000 downloads, which is amazing for our
I
first.
thought it was 100,000.
No, it will be by this time next year.
Well, zeros don't mean anything, anyways.
Don't give it
Here's
that
a
zero.
question. Here's a question for you. I felt bad. I couldn't help you during the time of your TEDx, the leading up to the TEDx talk.
Yeah.
It's a journey for yourself. Now, looking back from a subjective, retrospective perspective, you probably would handle it different today. But uh, what happened to you? Was it just pure stress, anxiety? What do you remember? What can you delve on that?
I think, and I've talked to a few other speakers. So the way when I do a keynote, I'm never scripted. I have my outline. I know what I want to say. I know the stories I want to tell, but it's never scripted. And so the biggest difference of the TEDx talk is that you have to write a speech that's never been done before. It has to be scripted. You have to turn in your script, have it be approved. So I think the pressure of that.
It was foreign to who you were, sure.
Yeah, it was foreign and I had to practice. At the same time though, I'm working still and I'm doing keynotes and so the messages all, listen, you can't multitask. So all the messages up in your brain, the older you get, the harder it is to memorize things or to remember things. Let's be honest, right?
You talking to me?
Yeah, who are you? But I think that what could be, if I had to give myself advice or to somebody else, and actually what I've not been very good at doing as of late, but I am now that I've been back from this most recent trip, is the meditation, is giving yourself the time in the morning to just pause. And as you know, I do yoga very early in the morning and it's 60 minutes and it is like all healing. I mean, yoga saved my life. You got me into yoga. And years ago, I was in a really bad place. And going to yoga was what helped me because it's the only place that my brain is completely turned off is in yoga. I mean, I remember going and laying on the mat and living in Chicago. They're all going through their vinyasa and I'm laying on the mat just crying because just being in that room, that collective energy helped me. So you helped me get into yoga. So you helped me then and you helped me, understand yoga. You help me all the time, Dad. And you helped me during my TEDx. You were like a huge part of my prep. So you did help me. But I think what I'm going to be adding in is that second bookend on the end is that gratitude reflection of, you talk about the benefits of low goal setting. And I think what happens is that when we think about what are you grateful for? Holy crap, I could list you 1,000 different things. Yeah. But no, it's 2 words that when we add them in, make the biggest difference. What are you grateful for right now? This very second, like today, or what will be your intention today? Not what's your intention for your life for this week, for that, whatever, but what's your intention right now? And they can change that day. And at the end, your gratitude. So I think by starting to add in more meditative practice into my life and calming stuff, I wasn't doing yoga back when I did that talk. I wasn't working out at all. Now I've got that. It changes my life.
It goes back to the meaning of yoga itself is unification of mind and body together. So your mind is kind of turned off, but it's really turned on. And I go back to my basic premise. You're the strongest when you're in a totally relaxed state. The David Shaner video the YouTube I wanted you to see about being stuck. Most people are stuck where the mind is different from the body. They have really no connection itself. They're running around almost in a random fashion. The mind has to be calmed down. But when people go through yoga, it's the subjective feeling. You've done a session. You can't describe that to someone who hasn't done it. Yeah. It's the answers, the solutions are there. The answers are there. The course is there. People have to just maintain their curiosity.
Well, I think some people are also scared of it, right? Too, like you are afraid to. And this is a whole other thing, but I think some people can't handle the calm. They need the chaos. But for me, that hour of in a room, do they call a yoga room something, or is it just a studio? Like they should, yeah, whatever. In that room, I'm not thinking about, like, my brain is off, which is just amazing. So
but that fear they have of losing the chaos is such a false fear.
Oh yeah.
The calmness gives them an incredible presence of mind, but it's something you have to experience for yourself.
I mean,
Nothing woo about it.
yeah. And I think if you don't do something, you fall into, like, what do they say? The difference between a rut and a grave is 6 feet.
Hmm. Listen,
And
as you grow, you have to evolve. If you stay in the same spot, it's just like stagnant water. It's not healthy for you.
agreed. Well, you've been a big part of my journey. You've always inspired me to stay with my yoga, stay with my meditation, from buying me Siddhartha back in the day to,
But you never read it.
I know, but I will, to everyday key in life. I did read some of that, but all of that, like those are all great things. So your legacy is definitely living on.
Well, as they say, I'm a work in progress.
Well, you're a starry night.
I'm a primal scream.
All right, Dad.
Wow. Okay.
I
Until
love
next time,
you.
kids. We
All
walked a
right.
mile. Man, that's a tough mile in her shoes today. I'll tell you that.
I know. Whew. Anyway. All right. Love you, Dad.
Love you too, babe. Bye bye.
Bye.